Christmas lights don't always guide us home. Sometimes, they illuminate something we were never meant to see. Tonight, I'm sharing 3 documented cases where the most wonderful time of the year became the most horrifying. These aren't urban legends passed around campfires. These are real events, recorded in police reports, witnessed by ordinary people, and remain unexplained to this day. What you're about to hear will change how you see those twinkling lights forever. Story 1, The Caller. December 23, 1987. Cascade County, Montana. Population, barely 8,000 souls scattered across frozen farmland where winter doesn't just arrive, it suffocates. That year, the temperature had dropped to 14 below zero, and a storm system had been circling the region for 3 days straight, dumping snow in sheets so thick you couldn't see your own hands in front of your face. The Peterson family, David, Martha, and their 2 daughters, Emma and Sophie, ages 9 and 7, had been snowed in at their farmhouse for 48 hours. No phone service. No radio signal. Just the howling wind and the creaking of old wood settling under the weight of ice. Martha Peterson would later tell investigators that the isolation didn't bother her at first. They had supplies. They had each other. David kept the fireplace roaring, and the girls played board games by candlelight when the power inevitably went out on the second night. But on the third night, December 23rd, at approximately 9:47 p.m., something changed. Martha was reading to the girls in their shared bedroom upstairs when she heard David shout from downstairs. Not a call for help. Not panic. Just her name. Once. Loud enough to cut through the storm. She told the girls to stay put, pulled her cardigan tight, and descended the wooden staircase. Each step groaned beneath her weight. The house was dark except for the fireplace glow coming from the living room, casting long, distorted shadows that stretched across the walls like reaching fingers. David was standing in the kitchen, perfectly still, holding their landline phone to his ear. His face had gone completely white. "Who is it?" Martha whispered. David didn't answer. He just stared at her, hand trembling, and slowly held the phone out toward her. She took it, pressed it against her ear. Static. Deep, crackling static, like something trying to break through from very far away. And then, beneath it, barely audible, breathing. Slow. Deliberate. The kind of breathing you do when you're trying to stay quiet. "Hello?" Martha said. The breathing stopped. Then, a voice. A man's voice. Low, calm, almost friendly. "Martha." Her blood turned cold. "Who is this?" "You need to check on the girls." The line went dead. Martha dropped the phone. It clattered against the linoleum floor. David was already moving, taking the stairs 2 at a time. Martha followed, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. The bedroom door was open. The girls were gone. The search. They tore through that house. Every room. Every closet. Under every bed. Screaming their daughters' names until their voices cracked. The storm outside had grown so violent that the windows rattled in their frames, and the wind sounded like something alive, something hungry. David grabbed his hunting rifle from the closet. Martha was sobbing, clawing at her own face in panic. And then they heard it. Giggling. Faint. Coming from downstairs. They descended slowly this time, David leading with the rifle raised. The giggling grew louder, echoing through the dark hallway. It was coming from the basement. The basement door was open. They never left it open. The steps leading down were swallowed by complete blackness, the kind of dark that feels thick, that feels like it has weight. David flicked the light switch. Nothing. He grabbed a flashlight from the kitchen drawer, clicked it on, and aimed it down the stairs. At the bottom, sitting cross-legged on the cold concrete floor, were Emma and Sophie. Perfectly fine. Smiling up at them. "Girls." Martha rushed down, pulling them into her arms. "What are you doing down here? How did you get down here?" Emma looked up at her mother with wide, innocent eyes. "The man told us to come down here. He said you'd come get us." Martha's stomach dropped. "What man?" "The man on the phone," Sophie said, still smiling. "He called us. He said to go to the basement and wait for you." David spun around, shining the flashlight into every corner of the basement. Empty. Nothing but old furniture covered in dusty sheets and boxes stacked against the walls. "There's no phone down here," David said, his voice barely above a whisper. But Sophie pointed to the corner, to an old rotary phone sitting on a wooden crate. It was covered in dust, the cord severed, frayed at the end. It hadn't been connected in years. The phone began to ring. Martha grabbed both girls and ran. David followed, slamming the basement door behind him and dragging a heavy cabinet in front of it. The ringing continued, muffled now, but still audible. Over and over and over. They spent the rest of the night huddled in the master bedroom, door locked, David sitting with the rifle across his lap. The phone rang until sunrise. 17 hours straight. When the storm finally broke on Christmas Eve morning, they packed a single bag and left. They never returned to that house. Sheriff's deputies investigated 2 days later. They found the phone in the basement, exactly where the girls had pointed. The severed cord was confirmed. No way it could have received a call. But when deputies tested it, just to be thorough, they heard something on the line. Breathing. And then, before they could hang up, a voice. They shouldn't have left. The investigation was closed. No explanation was ever provided. The house was demolished in 1991, but locals say if you drive past the property on winter nights, you can still hear a phone ringing from somewhere beneath the snow. Story 2, The Gift. Not all Christmas horror happens in remote farmhouses. Sometimes it happens in plain sight, in ordinary suburban neighborhoods where everyone knows everyone, where people leave their doors unlocked and children play in the streets until dark. Riverside, Ohio. December 2003. The Hammond family had just moved into a modest two-story home on Pinecrest Drive, a quiet cul-de-sac lined with maple trees and decorated mailboxes. Jennifer Hammond, a single mother of one, had scraped together every penny for the down payment. Her son, Tyler, age 10, had his own room for the first time in his life. It was supposed to be a fresh start. On December 19th, 6 days before Christmas, Jennifer came home from her shift at the hospital to find a package on the front porch. A large box, wrapped in brown paper, no postage, no return address. Just her name written in neat, blocky handwriting, Jennifer Hammond. She brought it inside, assuming it was from a neighbor welcoming her to the street. Tyler was upstairs doing homework. She set the box on the kitchen table and carefully peeled back the tape. Inside was another box. This one made of dark wood, ornate, with brass hinges and a small latch. Beautiful, really. Antique. The kind of thing you'd find in an estate sale. Jennifer opened it. Inside, nestled in red velvet lining, was a porcelain doll. It was exquisite. Victorian style, with a white lace dress, delicate painted features, and glassy blue eyes that seemed to catch the light no matter which way you turned it. But there was something off about it. The smile was too wide. The eyes too focused. Tucked beneath the doll was a small card, yellowed with age. The handwriting was the same as the box. For Tyler. He'll love her. The first night. Jennifer didn't like it. Some primal part of her brain screamed to throw the thing away, but Tyler walked into the kitchen at that exact moment and saw the doll. "Whoa," he said, eyes lighting up. "Is that for me?" Jennifer hesitated. I guess so." He picked it up carefully, cradling it like something precious. "She's so cool. Can I keep her in my room?" Against her better judgment, Jennifer nodded. That night, Tyler placed the doll on his dresser, directly across from his bed. Jennifer came in to say goodnight, and for just a moment, she could have sworn the doll's head had turned slightly, angled toward the bed. She checked. It hadn't moved. She was being ridiculous. At 3:17 a.m., Jennifer woke to the sound of Tyler screaming. She bolted into his room. He was sitting up in bed, drenched in sweat, pointing at the dresser. "She moved," he sobbed. "Mom, she moved." She was standing. The doll was exactly where he'd left it. Sitting. Motionless. Jennifer pulled Tyler into her arms. "It's just a nightmare, baby. Dolls don't move." But she took the doll downstairs anyway, locked it in the hall closet, and slept in Tyler's room that night. The next morning, the doll was back on Tyler's dresser. Jennifer felt her skin prickle with cold dread. She'd locked that closet. She was certain. She asked Tyler if he'd gone downstairs. He swore he hadn't. She took the doll again, this time putting it in the garage, inside a garbage bag, stuffed into a box on the highest shelf. That night, at 3:17 a.m., Tyler screamed again. The doll was sitting on his bed. Right next to him. Jennifer called the police. They came, looked around, found no signs of forced entry. They suggested she get better locks. Maybe a security system. One officer picked up the doll, examined it, and set it back down with an uncomfortable laugh. "Creepy little thing," he said. Jennifer tried to throw it away 3 more times. It always came back. Always to Tyler's room. Always at 3:17 a.m. On December 24th, Christmas Eve, Jennifer woke at 3:17 a.m. without Tyler screaming. She felt a wave of relief, maybe it had finally stopped. But then she noticed something. Her bedroom door was open. She always closed it. She got up, walked down the hallway, and froze. Tyler's door was open too. She could see him in bed, back turned to the door, covers pulled up to his chin. The doll was sitting in the hallway, facing her. And this time, Jennifer saw it move. Just a subtle tilt of the head, like it was curious. Jennifer grabbed Tyler, threw their essentials into the car, and drove to her sister's house at 4 in the morning. She left the doll in the house. She never went back. She hired movers to get their belongings. They reported that the doll was gone when they arrived. 2 weeks later, Jennifer received a call from the previous homeowner, an elderly woman named Margaret Frost who'd moved into an assisted living facility. "I heard you found Annabelle," Margaret said, her voice thin and tired. "Who?" "The doll. Annabelle. She was my daughter's. Caroline. She died in that house in 1978. Christmas Eve. 3:17 in the morning. Carbon monoxide leak." Jennifer's throat tightened. "Why didn't you tell me? I thought I'd taken everything. I thought I'd buried Annabelle with her. But I suppose she didn't want to leave." Margaret hung up. The unresolved mystery. Jennifer never found out who delivered the package. No neighbors claimed responsibility. No shipping records existed. The doll was never recovered. But in 2009, a new family moved into the Pinecrest Drive house. Their daughter, age 8, reported waking up at 3:17 a.m. every night to see a doll sitting at the foot of her bed. They moved out after 3 weeks. The house has been vacant since 2012. But locals say that if you walk past it on Christmas Eve and look through the upstairs window, you can see a small figure standing in the dark, watching the street. Story 3, The Visitor. Our final story takes place in the Appalachian Mountains of eastern Kentucky, where winter comes early and stays late, and where old traditions mix with older superstitions. In the small coal mining community of Harlan, there's a legend that locals don't talk about with outsiders. They call it the Visitor, or sometimes the Caroler, and it's tied to one specific night, December 21st, the winter solstice, the longest night of the year. The legend goes that if you hear caroling on the night of the 21st, you don't answer the door. You don't look outside. You turn off every light in your house and you wait until sunrise. Because the thing that's singing isn't human. In December 2015, a journalist named Aaron Trent decided to investigate the legend for a regional publication. He'd grown up in Kentucky, knew the mountains, and thought the story would make an interesting piece about Appalachian folklore. He drove to Harlan, rented a cabin on the outskirts of town, and started interviewing locals. Most refused to talk. The few who did spoke in hushed voices, insisted on anonymity, and all said the same thing: don't be outside on the 21st, don't answer if it knocks. Aaron, of course, didn't believe in folklore. He was a rational man with a journalism degree and a healthy skepticism of anything supernatural. On December 21st, 2015, he set up cameras around his cabin, made sure his voice recorder was charged, and waited. The sun set at 5:23 p.m. Aaron ate dinner, reviewed his notes, and checked the weather. Clear skies. Temperature dropping to 18 degrees. No wind. The kind of still, cold night where sound travels for miles. At 11:47 p.m., he heard it. Singing. Faint at first, coming from somewhere in the woods. A Christmas carol. Silent night. Beautiful, actually. Multiple voices in perfect harmony, echoing through the trees. Aaron grabbed his recorder and stepped onto the porch. His breath came out in thick clouds. The singing was getting closer, moving through the forest toward his cabin. He could see his camera's night vision display on his phone. Nothing moving in the trees. But the singing continued, growing louder, clearer. The voices were wrong. That was the first thing Aaron noticed. They were too perfect. No breath. No variation. like a recording, but somehow alive. And then he realized there were no footsteps, no sounds of movement, just the singing, gliding through the darkness. Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright. The singing stopped directly in front of his cabin. Aaron's heart was pounding. He raised his phone, aiming the camera at the tree line. Nothing. No one there. And then, from directly behind him, inside his cabin, the singing continued. Round yon virgin, mother and child. Aaron spun around. The cabin door was still closed, still locked. But the singing was coming from inside, from his living room, multiple voices layered over each other in that same perfect, breathless harmony. He slowly pushed the door open, stepped inside. The cabin was empty. But the singing continued, coming from everywhere and nowhere, filling the space like water rising in a locked room. Sleep in heavenly peace, sleep in heavenly peace. And then Aaron saw it. Standing in the corner, where the shadows were thickest, was a figure. Tall, impossibly thin. Its head tilted at an angle that wasn't quite right, like a curious dog, but wrong, so wrong. It wasn't singing anymore. It was watching him. Aaron couldn't move. Every instinct in his body screamed at him to run, but his legs wouldn't respond. The figure took a step forward, and Aaron saw its face. It wasn't a face. It was a mask. Smooth, white, featureless except for two hollow black pits where eyes should have been and a wide, painted smile that stretched too far, curling up past where a mouth should end. The figure opened that painted mouth, and the singing poured out again, but this time it wasn't multiple voices. It was just one. Deep, resonant. Wrong. Silent night, holy night. Aaron's voice recorder captured what happened next. The audio file, later released to the public after the investigation, contained 17 minutes of singing, Aaron's ragged breathing, and something else, a low, rhythmic thumping, like a heartbeat, growing louder and faster. At the 14-minute mark, Aaron whispers, "Please, please stop." The singing stops. Then, a voice. Not singing. Speaking. Soft, almost gentle. "You answered the door." I didn't open. "You looked. You listened. You invited me in." The recording captures the sound of footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Aaron's breathing becomes frantic. "What do you want?" A long pause. Then, "To sing." The recording ends with Aaron screaming. Aaron Trent was found on the morning of December 22nd by the cabin's owner, who'd come to check on him after noticing his car still in the driveway. He was alive, sitting in the corner of the living room, knees pulled to his chest, staring at the wall. He was unresponsive for 3 days. When he finally spoke, he could only repeat one phrase over and over. "It's still singing. I can still hear it singing." Aaron was transferred to a psychiatric facility in Lexington. He remains there to this day. According to his medical records, which were leaked in 2018, he still hears the singing. Every night. Starting at 11:47 p.m. Ending at sunrise. He hasn't celebrated Christmas since. The cameras Aaron set up captured nothing. No figure. No movement. But the audio recorder tells a different story. Experts who've analyzed the recording say the voice, the thing speaking to Aaron, doesn't match any known human vocal pattern. The frequency is wrong. The resonance is wrong. One audio forensic specialist noted that the voice sounds layered, as if multiple recordings were played simultaneously, but organically, not artificially. The thumping sound in the background was identified as a heartbeat, but far too slow, approximately 28 beats per minute. A human heart rate that low would indicate severe distress or near death. But whose heartbeat was it? The locals in Harlan weren't surprised. The visitor comes every year, one elderly resident told a follow-up investigator. It wants to be heard. It wants to be invited in. And if you give it even a crack, if you open that door, if you look out that window, if you listen to its song, it'll never leave you alone. The cabin where Aaron stayed was torn down in 2017. But people still report hearing caroling in those woods on December 21st. Beautiful, perfect, wrong. And every year, without fail, someone new ends up in that psychiatric facility in Lexington, whispering the same thing. It's still singing. 3 families. 3 Christmases. 3 encounters with something that shouldn't exist. The phone that couldn't ring. The doll that wouldn't leave. the visitor that still sings. These aren't stories passed down through generations, warped by time and retelling. These are documented cases with witnesses, evidence, and unanswered questions that haunt everyone who looks too closely. So this Christmas, when you're sitting by the tree, lights glowing, carols playing softly in the background, remember, not everything that knocks is friendly. Not everything that calls knows you by accident. And not everything that sings is human. Sleep well. And whatever you do, don't answer the door. If these stories kept you up tonight, consider subscribing and turning on notifications. We dive into the darkest, most disturbing true cases every week. Drop a comment telling us which story unsettled you most, and if you have your own unexplained Christmas encounter, we want to hear it. Until next time, stay safe and keep the lights on.